I'd now like to invite Ms. Estel Parka, the Director of the Department of...
Their respective governments, distinguished guests and ladies and gentlemen. The Australian government has a wonderful relationship and their two countries share many warm and very open relationships. We have many agreements, including an agreement on air services, an agreement on sharing information on financial services, an agreement on security and police and so on. The relationship really is very warm, and there are in fact 100,000, I think, people in Australia who identify as Macedonian, so the people-to-people links are very strong. And I learnt today that in fact there is a spot left reserved in Parliament for an Australian representative of the Australian diaspora. So the relationship between our two countries is so warm and wonderful, which is why it's such a pleasure for me to be here to propose this toast to President Ivanov and his people.
And now I'd like to invite Ms. Beti Korunovska, who'd like to address our guests this evening.
The Honourable Brus Atkinson, President of the Legislative Council of the Parliament, Mrs. Estel Parka, Director of the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, Your Excellency Mr. Velе Trpevski, Ambassador of the Republic of Macedonia and Australia, dear colleagues from the Consular Corps of Victoria, members of Parliament, representatives from Macedonian diaspora, ladies and gentlemen, let me express my sincere appreciation of your presence. Today, we celebrate independence of the Republic of Macedonia. The process of Macedonian political and economic transformation started 24 years ago. We all remember very well how hard it was for us to sustain the necessary reforms and how much perseverance is required to complete them successfully on both levels, government and social. We have had ups and downs, crises, realized and unrealized dreams, but the state was built and moved forward. Today's great challenge of Macedonia is membership in the European Union and NATO. Macedonia is a place aimed to improve citizens' lives, create environment for new jobs, bring the country closer to Europe. With the objective of a better life and more prosperous country, Republic of Macedonia today is politically, macroeconomically and fiscally stable, rapidly growing and forward-looking country. We were delighted to see Macedonia in the top 10 list of world's most welcoming countries according to World Economic Forum. We have Skopje, with attractive architecture. We have Ohrid, the pearl on the Balkan. We have Kokino, the fourth oldest observatory in the world. Republic of Macedonia is a birthplace of Alexander the Great and Mother Teresa, which makes all Macedonians proud for having iconic people in historic heritage. Macedonia is caring for the position of Macedonian communities beyond the national borders, to improve the legal status and treatment of the Macedonian minority in other states. Macedonia and Australia are connected with 100,000 Macedonians, which are directly involved in Australian society and contribute in every field in the country. Our bilateral relations with Australia have never been better. The Republic of Macedonia and Australia marking 20 years of the establishing diplomatic relations this year. This is a period which the two countries managed to build stable political relations with concerted efforts. All conditions have been created for us to promote cooperation in these years ahead. Parliamentary level, social insurance, trade, education, sport. The cooperation is truly close, especially in developing economic relations. Today, we have successful Australians who have their businesses and expanded provision of services and products to the European market through Macedonia. Day by day, Republic of Macedonia becomes the gateway to Europe. We would like to develop the human dimension of the Australian-Macedonian cooperation, focusing especially on younger generations. We are thinking about how to make our societies closer, and we will be very satisfied if the network of contacts got bigger between scientists, experts, universities, and so on. Such networking always stimulates new ideas. I would like to take this opportunity to thank everyone for attending. I wish all Macedonians happy Independence Day, and I hope you will be enjoying in the evening. Thank you.
Živela Makedonija!
Thank you, Ms. Korunovska, and it's now my pleasure to invite His Excellency the Ambassador of the Republic of Macedonia to Canberra, Mr. Velе Trpevski.
Honorable Brus Atkinson, representatives of state, federal government, local government, representatives of our diplomatic corps, dear colleagues, dear Macedonians, friends of Macedonia, wherever you are. It presents me a great pleasure to be here tonight and to have the chance to talk to you in front of this wonderful crowd which came here to us tonight to honor us on our most important day, on our holiday, 8th of September. It's very hard act to follow Betty's speech because she did a fantastic job on Macedonia, and it's fantastic that she said she covered all the bases. Congratulations to my colleague. So, as I said, 8th of September is one of the most important holidays for us Macedonians because it's a time when we look to our bright future and our bright expectations from the future of our beautiful country, but it's a time when we look back and we remember the struggle for what we have today. We remember the 1903 and the Ilinden Uprising, the first republic in the Balkans created in Macedonia. We remember the 1944 and the monastery of Prohorčinski, where the foundations of the modern Macedonian state were founded. And we remember most of all the heroes which lived under cosmopolitan values, that they understood the world as a field for cultural competitiveness between the people of this world. But yet, when time came, they were ready to pay the ultimate price for the freedom and the independence of Macedonia as we have it today. So that's why we honor this holiday today, and we remember our heroes. And that's why 8th of September is so important for all the Macedonians wherever they are in the world. Today, Macedonia is a fantastic country. It's a country developing to the standards of the Western European societies. We've been doing it for years and trying to adapt the highest qualities of the modern Western societies' values and meanings. And today, Macedonia, I'm glad to say, is the second best progressing country in economic sense, only bested by Ireland. So we are registering some 3.9% GDP growth this year, which is second best in Europe, and we have 11% of industrial growth. Things are looking positive. Companies from all around the world are recognizing the efforts of our government to change the picture of our proud country and to drive it forward toward Europe and toward the world. And we are very proud of our country. But unfortunately, even though things are looking very positive and hopefully we'll have years and years of stability and prosperity in the years to come, Macedonia has been always challenged, and very often we have been negated. People have tried and countries have tried to take part of our cultural heritage, to present it as their own. And, you know, us Macedonians are very proud and generous people. We're cosmopolitan people even today. And we have so much cultural heritage that even if we gave to every single nation of this world part of our nation, and part of our heritage, will still be very rich, one of the richest ones. So in that regard, we are proud to be Macedonians. But as I said, challenges in our region are very difficult. Some of them, as you might have known, just a few months back, we managed to deal and dismantle one of the worst terrorist organizations in the Southeast Europe. Unfortunately, they were in Macedonia. We lost 8 police officers who, even today, are heroes, are ready to give their life for the sovereignty of Macedonia. Hopefully, it will never happen again. But as we see now, Macedonia is also faced with another crisis, which is not only to us. It's a crisis of Europe, crisis of the world, because we have the big movement of the Syrian refugees. And unfortunately for us, we are still on the traditional route of movement of people. And now some 90% of the general traffic of refugees is going through Macedonia. And we are doing the best we can, but we are dealing with 4,000 to 5,000, sometimes 7,000 people a day. Compared to Australia, there will be like 70,000 refugees arriving on the Australian shore every day. That's how difficult it is. And we are dealing with it. We have dealt with 400,000 refugees in 1999, even though nobody helped us. Today, we're dealing with this proudly. We're not asking for help, but just for understanding that we're doing the best we can, and our police officers and our professional army is doing the best we can. And when you see somebody trying to twist the story, making sensational news out of this effort, out of this big effort that we are doing as a country, then you feel sorry, and we are doing all the best we can. And I call for all of you to look into it and to see the reality of it, because Macedonia is giving the biggest hand to those people in need now, even at the risk of our integrity and our economic system, because it's a huge thing. But we Macedonians, as I said, are generous people. We've always helped, and will always help to anybody in the world. I think Betty covered fantastically the relations between Australia and Macedonia. They're on the highest level ever, even though there are things that we need to work on, as always, and to progress further. The one question that remains open is the recognition of our constitutional name. But we are working very hard with both parties in Australia to find a mutually and bilaterally acceptable solution to this. And I'm very optimistic that the progress will be made, because it's the right thing to do. And I believe in my time here in 2 years, I have realized that the Australians and Australian politicians have the mentality of doing what's right is what we're going to do. And in this case, doing what's right is changing a little bit the position of Australia from completely polarized to a little bit more neutral and more satisfactory to every community living in Australia. We are apart by some 17,000 kilometers today from our capital, Skopje, maybe 18, not sure. And you would have think that there is not too much going on between the two countries. But as Betty said, some 150,000 Macedonian Australians are living here, contributing to the building of this beautiful society of Australia, to building of the Australian social fiber, and contributing to the building of this beautiful Australia as we know it today. And for that reasons, the relations we are building are fantastic on every single level, and I hope that they will improve constantly. We have always been partners with Australia in the big wars around the world. Even today, our soldiers are side by side with Australian soldiers in missions abroad, proudly sitting and defending what's right, and always sitting on the right side of history. So thank you for coming tonight. It's an honor to be here, and thank you for honoring us with your presence. Long live Macedonia, long live Australia, and let's build relations further. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ambassador. And now I'd like to invite the Honourable Brus Atkinson, President of the Legislative Council, to take part in our official proceedings.
Let's see how the coach went. Dobro večer.
Благодариме.
What did I say?
Thank you.
No.
Very
I
much
know I
for
said
coming.
good evening. Thank you for having me. Do you know if Betty decides to take out Australian citizenship, we've got a place for her in the Parliament. What a fantastic speech. You made a wonderful speech. And can I indicate that I think that her work as Consul General here in Melbourne has been fantastic. She is continuing, Mr. Ambassador, to develop the bridges between Victoria and Macedonia. She is certainly supporting the Macedonian community, and of the number that you quoted, the 150,000 in Australia, I dare say that the largest proportion is in Victoria. This is a vibrant, exciting, wonderful community that has contributed so much to the advancement of Victoria. We're very proud here in this state about our multicultural community and the standards that we set on a bipartisan basis in terms of our engagement with the various communities. We invite them to celebrate their heritage. We invite them to share their traditions and their experience with us. But I might say, and I don't think that this is a massive issue for the Macedonian community, because I think that it already recognises this point. But I was at the weekend at a Chinese function, a conference, and we talked about a number of things, and basically the conference was about breaking through the bamboo ceiling. In other words, for these wonderful people that we have here in Australia from the Asian backgrounds, who are getting so far in our community but perhaps not getting to some of the top levels. And it is certainly true that we don't have any Asians in politics in Victoria at this stage, with the exception maybe of Hong Lim, who is from Cambodia. Breaking through the bamboo ceiling. We celebrate a multicultural community here, and it's fantastic to share festivals and events and to recognise important milestones in the history of countries from around the world that have had their diaspora come to Melbourne, to Victoria. But what is crucial is that we don't just define the communities in terms of those festivals, and heaven forbid in terms of their food or their dance or such like. That in fact we define them in terms of the contribution that they can make, both to Victoria and Australia, but also that they can make in a global community, and obviously especially in terms of the connections with their country of heritage. In Australia today, in Victoria today, we are very mindful of the challenges in Europe. We are very saddened by what is happening in a number of parts of the world, but particularly in the Middle East, particularly in Syria and the countries surrounding Syria. The dislocation of people who simply want peace in their lives, who want to get on with their lives, who want a future for their children and grandchildren, just as we do here in Victoria